I would like to make a statement on the abscond of an individual subject to a terrorism prevention and investigation measure, or TPim. The Metropolitan Police believe that on Friday, the 1st of November, TPim subject Mohammed Ahmed Mohamed absconded from his controls. He was last seen at 3:15 p.m. inside a mosque in Acton. The Police Counter-Terrorism Command immediately launched an intensive covert operation to trace Mohammed, and inquiries continue. Ports and borders were notified with his photograph, and details were circulated nationally and internationally. Acting on police advice, on Saturday I applied to the High Court for an order protecting Mohammed's anonymity to be lifted in order to assist the police with their investigation. Last night the police appealed for the public's help in tracing him. The police have urged anyone who sees Mohammed or knows of his whereabouts not to approach him, but to call 999 or to contact the anti-terrorist hotline. The Police and Security Service have confirmed that they do not believe that this man poses a direct threat to the public in the UK. The reason he was put on a TPim in the first place was to prevent his travel to support terrorism overseas. I have spoken several times over the weekend to the Director General of the Security Service, Andrew Parker, and to the Metropolitan Police Assistant Commissioner for Specialist Operations, Cressida Dick. I received another briefing earlier today. They have told me that they believe they have all the resources and support they need to carry out this manhunt. However, I will not hesitate to provide them with any additional assistance they require. I know the whole House will join me in thanking the police and the security service for their continued efforts to keep our country safe. Their focus is to locate and arrest Mr. Mohammed. They are doing everything in their power to apprehend him as quickly as possible, and the government will provide them with all the support they need. And I commend this statement to the House.
Yvette Cooper.
Mr. Speaker, I think Parliament will be deeply concerned about the Home Secretary's statement. Obviously, we all want to see the police and the security service get all possible help to apprehend Mohammed Ahmed Mohamed as soon as possible. The Home Secretary says that he poses no direct threat, even though he is widely reported in the media to have attended terror training camps, to have procured weapons and planned attacks. And he has walked away from a terror suspect order in a very simple disguise, and the Home Secretary has no idea where he is. This is the second man in 10 months subject to a TPim who has now absconded. There were only 10 of them to start off with, and 2 have now gone. 1 in a black cab, 1 in a disguise. We called then for controls to be tightened and the legislation revisited and lessons learnt, and none of that has happened. The Home Secretary has done nothing. Since control orders were strengthened some years ago, no one absconded since 2007. And the former counter-terror reviewer, Lord Carlisle, has said nobody absconded while subject to a relocation order. But since the Home Secretary got rid of relocation orders, got rid of control orders, and brought in the weaker TPims, 2 terror suspects have vanished. Ibrahim Magag was previously relocated to the West Country. The Home Secretary's decision brought him back, and he disappeared. Mohammed Ahmed Mohamed was previously relocated outside London, and the Home Secretary's decision brought him back, and he too has disappeared. Her policies brought these 2 terror suspects back into contact with their old networks, with people who could help them disappear, and made it easier for these terror suspects to run off. Last time, she said, there was plenty of money for the added surveillance needed. So was Mr. Mohammed under active surveillance when he entered the mosque, or was it just ordinary CCTV? His case was in court on Friday. He was accused of tampering with his tag. But why did the government then drop the case? Were the tags faulty? Were there other charges? The Home Secretary said he was under a TPim to stop him travelling overseas. But what does she plan to do next year when his TPim ran out and when all the other TPims ran out too? Mr. Speaker, TPims apply to a very small number of difficult cases, and everyone recognises there was no perfect answer and there will always be challenges. But this Home Secretary has made it easier for serious terror suspects to disappear, and that is irresponsible. She was warned about changing the law. She was warned about weakening controls. She was warned more people would abscond, and they have, twice. But still she won't act. The question on everyone's lips is how many more warnings does this Home Secretary need?
Home Secretary.
This is indeed a serious issue, but I have to say that I think the response from the Right Honourable Lady was beneath somebody who is supposed to understand these matters. She made reference to the money that is available for surveillance. I understand that she briefed Sky News this morning that she would tell the House of Commons that, and I quote, actually there has been cuts to the funding for monitoring and surveillance. I notice she's now dropped this from her argument because the truth is, as she knows well, that as part of the TPim package we introduced in 2011, the government didn't cut the surveillance budget for the police and security service, we increased it. And we increased it by tens of millions of pounds per year. And we didn't cut the budget for counter-terrorism policing and the security service, we protected them. Secondly, she asked about the lessons learnt from the McGagh case. I can confirm that there was a review of the McGagh case, which was shared with David Anderson, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, who mentioned it in his annual review. All the recommendations of that review have been acted on. I can also confirm that a similar review will be conducted into this case. Now, she referred to the changes in TPims. They are, of course, time-limited, but time limits have absolutely nothing to do with this case, since the subject was still bound by the terms of his TPim. And what the Right Honourable Lady never tells this House when she makes this point is that 43 people who were subject to control orders have now exited those control orders. Because the truth is that even before time-limited TPims were introduced, the courts would not allow people to be left permanently on control orders. Now, when the Commissioner of Metropolitan Police was asked, do you have concerns about time limits, he said, and I quote, I do not think so. Now, fourth, I'll come on to the relocations. The Right Honourable Lady talked about tagging. GPS tags are used to provide information on the location of TPIM subjects, and I should say that the tags that are used for TPIMs are indeed significantly better than the ones they replaced, which had no ability to track subjects outside their home. In this case, the police believe the tag functioned exactly as it should have done, but it will be one of the aspects considered as part of the review into the case. And I should tell the House that I have been advised that this abscond does not raise any new operational issues with the tags. Now, she also talked about relocation. But she knows that if someone is determined to break the terms of their TPIM or control order, there is little to stop them from doing so in one place or another. As David Anderson, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, says, and I quote, the only sure way to prevent absconding is to lock people up in a high-security prison. Now, unless the Right Honourable Lady is proposing the introduction of those draconian laws, and I thought she'd long conceded long ago that 90 days was too long, she should accept what David Anderson says. There will always be a risk of an abscond. Now, the Shadow Home Secretary talked about the control order regime, and she talks as if it would never allowed any absconds of its subjects. But of course, during the 6 years that control orders existed, there were 7 absconds, and only one of those 7 people was ever found again. So the idea that somehow they prevented absconds is not true. Even if we wanted to go back to the days of control orders, we would not be able to do so. The powers available under control orders were being steadily eroded by the courts, and the system was becoming unviable. Unlike control orders, TPIMs have been upheld consistently by the courts, so we now have a strong and sustainable legal framework to handle terror suspects. And the police and the security service have always said that there has been no substantial increase in overall risk since the introduction of TPIMs, and despite the implication of what the Right Honourable Lady said, we have increased by tens of millions of pounds the annual budget for surveillance by the police and security service, but we've also given them new powers. In April of this year, in a written statement to the House, I explained how we would use the royal prerogative to remove passports from British nationals who we want to prevent from travelling abroad to take part in extremist activity, in terrorism training or other fighting. That power has already been used on several occasions since it was introduced. And for foreign nationals, the immigration bill will make it easier for us to get them out of the country. That's a bill, by the way, that the opposition failed to vote for at second reading. So the idea that under this government, the police and security service have fewer powers to keep us safe is just wrong. The idea that they have less money to keep us safe is wrong. Wrong about powers, wrong about funding. The Right Honourable Lady should take her responsibilities seriously and support the police and security service in the important work that they do.